young man?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Good to
We
see
got
you.
your favorite realtor on the call today. So
Favorite broker? Absolutely.
there you go. Favorite broker. That's a better way to say
Mhm.
it. Good to see you. Jamie Frazier, are you out there? I'd love to see you. That's awesome. There you are. Yay.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Thanks, Jamie. My birthday actually isn't until Friday. I don't know. I've been getting a lot of happy birthdays today, so there must be some misinformation out there somewhere, but I'll take it anyway. It's my birthday week. Who else we got on here today?
We got, I don't know if Latasha is out there. Latasha's had
I'm
a crazy
here.
week.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Hi, Latasha.
Hi.
Latasha had some plumbing stolen from her house on Saturday.
Damn. So
At
tell us,
Monarch House?
Yep. We
Dang.
just had it all. We
tell us
just had it
about
all.
it. What happened? How did it happen? And what are you doing about it?
Moving on. The person is a person that just was walking the streets. We have the video footage of it, and
Gotcha.
I'm just waiting on one more camera look from another neighbor where he's actually carrying the stuff out. A little bitty person got through one of the smallest windows in the basement. I mean, that he was really determined.
Yeah.
And what he took, I mean, even though it kind of messed us up, but I was like, what could you have done with the amount that you took, you know? But it's already been replaced. We were just about to get the inspection done for the plumbing. I was just like, great. So
Yeah,
just gotta keep moving.
I was just there a couple days ago, and yeah, it's totally opened. So wow. So I guess the good news is they did it while they didn't damage much. Is that fair to say, Latasha?
It's fair to say, yeah, you were just there. I think probably, I don't know if you took pictures, but all that stuff was done. And Anthony had just actually left the property to go, I think, dump something and came back. And then when he rolled past, he didn't like go all the way in because he was just coming by to see if one of our contractors was there.
Yeah.
And they weren't. And then another contractor let us know that it happened. But I guess it could have been worse, you all. It was still bad, but it could have been worse, I guess. So
Could have been done after you're all drywalled in and they're like knocking holes in the drywall.
yeah. But yep. So we're just moving forward.
That's right. You guys always move forward. So did you put a security camera on your house, or how did you get the videos?
My two neighbors that's there have videos. They both have cameras up.
Gotcha.
So
Well,
that's how we got it.
good to have good neighbors.
Yep.
So are you trying to find the dude, or are you not worrying about it?
Oh no. Yeah, once I get this second video of him actually carrying the evidence, because the first one only shows him going, towards the house. So the detective is like, once you give me that video, and I'm just waiting on the neighbors who are elderly, so they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
One of the children are going to send it to us, and then I'm going to, submit it to them. So.
Gotcha. Well, good luck on that. Hopefully it all works out in a good way.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Matt, good to see you, my man. Thanks for joining us today. Suzanne's, I think she's got some stuff going on at her house, so she asked me to intro you. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the state of the market today, right?
That's it. That's right.
Awesome. Awesome. So anybody who doesn't know, I assume most everybody on this call does know, but for anybody that doesn't know, Matt Becker is the best real estate broker that ever existed anywhere at any time. And we fortunately happen to have him on our call today. And as the leader of Magnolia Real Estate here in the St. Louis area. And so I always encourage people that are in the real estate biz to hire an awesome real estate agent that knows what they're doing and understands the real estate investing business. So I'm just going to give a quick commercial for Matt because he volunteers to spend his time with us today. So I really encourage people to use either Matt or anybody on his team because they understand real estate investors. There's so many agents out there that don't. So please, when you're flipping your houses, give Magnolia Real Estate and Matt Becker an opportunity to work with you. And Matt's super I'm going to say in tune with what's going on in the market because how many, you got like roughly 100 agents these days, Matt, give or take?
Sitting right at 100.
Right at 100. So between what Matt does himself and his 100 agents, you know, he knows what's going on in the market because there's activity, you know, going on every day. So we asked Matt to come on about once a quarter to just kind of give us a take on what's going on in the real estate market in St. Louis right now. So super valuable information. So Matt, I'll just let you take it. And hey, after Matt's done, and we always like, I think Matt's good with this. I always like feedback and communication. So this is interactive. So definitely jump on and ask questions, raise your hand, throw stuff in the chat. And after Matt's done, we'll also have a little bit of time for just share some wins and challenges and so forth. So stick around for that type of thing. But Matt, I'll let you take it for a little bit here.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I absolutely love doing this call with you guys and to know a lot of you on the screen. So that's it's always fun. So I'm gonna start real quick. Most of you guys know that I'm involved on the political side of real estate. A lot of politics affects what we do and how we do it. And we had two huge legislative wins for you guys this session. So signed into law last week in the governor's office. There was there was what we call a super bill that a bunch of stuff that we've been working on for a long time got tacked together. And two pieces of that that's huge for you guys in the state of Missouri is unlawful occupation and a prohibition on eviction moratoriums. So signed into law last week. If we ever have another COVID, there is not a single political subdivision in the state now that can conduct or force an eviction moratorium. So we will never have to deal with an eviction moratorium like we did during COVID ever again in the state of Missouri. So that is huge. That's a huge win for us. And then unlawful occupation, we've been trying to get something done with a squatters law for a long time, and it was signed into law last week. So now what you do is you go file your order that says that your property is being unlawfully occupied. It's basically like a ex parte. The judge signs it. Immediately upon the judge signing it, law enforcement has to arrest that person and remove them from your house. I believe it's within 72 hours from the time of the judge's signature. So if you've got somebody squatting in one of your properties and refusing to vacate the property, you can now file the unlawful occupation order. Once it's signed by the judge, they have to be removed from the property by law enforcement within, I believe it's 72 hours. So two huge wins for us. What used to take months to get squatters out now should take a few days. Those were two big legislative wins. We've been working hard on those. There was another piece of that has to do with historic tax credits and historic stuff, historic properties. A lot of times if you were trying to renovate a home or rehab a home that was on a historic registry, it could take months, if not years, to get approval to make the changes in the renovations. That has been streamlined now. The historic preservation divisions have 60 days. They have to respond with an approval or denial of your request within 60 days. So if you end up getting a house that's in a historic district or a historic preservation, you can get that project moving along a lot faster. So huge wins for us. There's a whole bunch more, but I don't want to bore you with them. Those are the big ones that affect you guys. So we were very, very excited to get those done. Other thing that's going on in the market, you guys have probably all heard about it. It's been all over the news for a while, but there was an NAR lawsuit. The National Association of Realtors got sued years and years ago. Well, they finally came up with a settlement on that. And the settlement goes into effect a month from today, August 17th. It all has to be in effect. And in the St. Louis market and in the state of Missouri, most of those changes are going to effect on August 1st. The biggest thing, the reason I wanted to bring it up in this group is that hopefully all of you use a realtor in some way, shape, or form, and hopefully it's a Magnolia one. But if it's not, I know you guys have your friends and you got people, good people that work for you. Effective August.
Just go right through the
August
door. One
1st.
of the ladies in there will sign.
Effective August 1st. Anytime a realtor is going to show you a property, they're going to require you to be signed into a buyer's agency agreement. There's exclusive agreements, there's non-exclusive agreements. But in the past, a lot of times the agent didn't make you sign that agreement until you were ready to write a contract or you were ready to move forward on a property. Starting August 1st, all realtors across the country have to have a buyer's agency agreement in place before they can take you across the threshold. And so I think that for investors, there's a lot of questions that go along with that because they're like, well, I don't want to be locked in with one agent. I don't want you, a lot of us work with agents that bring us deals when we're looking for properties on the MLS or looking for properties that are out there. So the big thing I wanted to just kind of get across to you guys with that is if an agent requires you to sign a buyer's agency, make sure that that buyer's agency is either for a specific property or it doesn't lock you into anything that you don't want to get locked into with that agent. If you ever have questions, review those agreements. I'm always available. So if someone puts something in front of you and you don't feel comfortable with it, even if it's not one of our agents, reach out to me and I can walk you through that. I think that there's going to be a lot of investors that are very cautious because agents are going to be saying, well, now I can't show you this property unless you sign this agreement. And there's a lot of investors that don't want to get locked into one person because they want somebody who's going to bring them deals. So just know that any agreement that's put in front of you can be it can be a non-exclusive agreement, meaning that anybody can still show you property, or it can just be a single agreement for a single property, and that can be modified at any time. So that is something that's changing across the country. We've always required buyer agency here in the state of Missouri if you're working with an agent, but now it's just going to be, I think you're going to see agents pushing that more up front. So hopefully that's something you guys are prepared for and know that that's coming. Any questions over any of that or anything out of that NAR lawsuit or settlement that you guys have? I know I've answered a lot of questions for a lot of people, but if you ever hear something, there was a ton of misinformation that came out about it when it first happened. And the news media was reporting it like, the world was ending and realtors no longer had jobs and, everybody's going to sell their house through Zillow and that's going to be the end of it. And that's not the case at all. But if you ever have questions about that or you hear something and you want to know if it's legit, feel free to reach out to me anytime because I'm happy to discuss that settlement with you and exactly what it lines out for us. So that takes care of the settlement. So then moving over to the market, it's been interesting. It's been a good solid market. Inventory still the same. It's still the biggest issue that we have. There's no inventory. We're hovering between 1.5 and 2 months of inventory all across our region. St. Louis County, City, St. Charles County, Jefferson, Lincoln, Warren County, all about 1.5 to 2 months worth of inventory, which is just not, it's just not enough inventory. Typically a good, strong, solid seller's market is around 4 months of inventory. 4 months keeps us in a seller's market, but it also provides enough houses on the market for all the buyers. You get over the 5-6 months of inventory, now you're in a buyer's market. But being at 1.5 months of inventory it sucks. It really does. It's just there's not enough houses out there for buyers, especially the first-time home buyers. And that's still our strongest pool of where the market is right now. If you've got a good house that is cleaned up, ready to go, flipped, whatever the case may be, if you're hovering between that 175 and 300 range, that range of houses, especially in St. Charles County. St. Charles County, I got nothing. If you've got buyers that are first-time home buyers looking for a 250 house, they're competing on every single one, and there's still not enough of that inventory. The other weird thing that we've been seeing is the lack of inventory on the luxury market. I don't know if more people are making more money in some places, if we're bringing in higher paid jobs to our region, but we do not have enough of the 700, 800, 900 million, 1.2, $1.5 million homes. So we're fortunate enough at Magnolia to represent a builder whose starting price is $1 million. They opened up a subdivision at the end of last year, 9 lots, starting price $1 million on each new build. And we have sold out. We've got 1 lot left actually. So, you know, and that's a Winsville subdivision. So Winsville, Missouri. But the reason I mention that is if you've got the opportunity, to do a bigger flip, do a bigger project, pick up a bigger home. I know that the risk is a little higher on those. There's a lot more money you're putting into them, but the return can be huge because we just don't have enough of that luxury line. Especially in certain areas. You know, there's the Frontenacs and the Ladus and the, you know, and the Town and Countries. They've got a few more than we do, but the St. Charles County, even into Lincoln and Warren County, we're seeing more and more need for those bigger luxury homes. So if you come across a project or a rehab that's that higher end, don't be scared of it because we've got buyers out there for it, and we're selling those very, very quickly. So that part of it is still strong with the inventory. Closings in June were down across our region. So we were down about 16.5% in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, and about 12.5% year over year in St. Charles County. Which is kind of crazy because interest rates really haven't changed much since the beginning of the year. And April and May were record breaking for most of our region. Year over year in April and in May, numbers were up all across every single county. In May, Magnolia, it was our record we broke every record we've ever set in May. It was an insane month. And then all of a sudden in June it drops, but nothing's really changed. The inventory is still the same. Interest rates are still the same. And so a lot of people keep asking, they're like, what are we hitting a slump? Are we hitting are we shifting? What's happening? I think people are taking vacations, guys. I think people are enjoying their summers. Honest to God, I think that's what it is. We talk to agents all the time and they're like, they'll call us and they'll say, hey, you got a great listing out there. My client's out of town this weekend and isn't going to be able to see it. We still sell it that weekend. We still sell it the next week. But I think people are back to enjoying their summers. I mean, for so many, for 2020, 2021, and even parts of 2022, people weren't traveling. They weren't going anywhere. Things were still shut down. People were still weird about that. And so now we're seeing this huge influx of, you know what, the weather's nice. The kids are out of school. We're going out of town. We're going to travel. And that's affecting how people do their real estate in the summer. And people aren't scared of buying and selling houses during the school year anymore. And that's that true bell curve that we used to see, 20 years ago, just isn't there anymore. People aren't waiting for the kids to get out of school, then move into their new home and then start school in the new district. It's not happening. So, when people are asking, I had a client, they have a house going live. We go live on Thursday, Friday, somewhere in there, we go live. We're texting last night. They got hit by the storms. They're out of power. They had to we pushed back going live a day because they're out of power. So we're just texting last night and, they're freaking out a little bit about the power issue and all that stuff. And I said, the market's been a little weird. And I said, we're just, showings have been a little bit slower. And you would have thought I told them that the market had crashed and they weren't going to sell their house. Like, she was completely freaked out. And I said, I'm sorry I used the word weird. I said, but that's the only way we can explain it, because I said, people are just traveling. They're taking vacations right now. They're enjoying their summer. And so it's just, we're still getting multiple offers. We're still seeing that traffic. It's just a little bit slower. And, it's just kind of I think people are enjoying their summer. And I don't know how else to say it than that. So we're still seeing good numbers on the back end of Maris and the MLS and off Zillow. And when you track those, the amount of people that are still looking they're just not as motivated to pull the trigger right in the middle of their summer because they got a vacation coming up in 2 weeks and they don't want to disrupt that. So I think that's one thing that we can chalk that up to. And again, the people are still being a little bit more picky. You know, money's more expensive now, and so they are taking their time. They're making sure it's exactly what they want. And you know, I think that's a good thing. So we're seeing that. Interest rates about the same, 7 to 7.5%. My predictions that I made at the beginning of the year, I'm still holding fast to that. The Fed is going to make a rate drop. You know, there's been a lot of people. The Fed meets July 30th and 31st. So there's a lot of people that said, well, they're gonna make that drop before the primaries are done in Missouri. Well, Missouri's primaries are different than every other state's primaries. I don't think they're going to do anything before our August primary. I think what's going to happen is they're going to make a decision to drop it, and they're going to make a cut sometime at the beginning of September or the end of September. I think sometime in September you're going to see that cut, and they're going to make that cut at that point in time because that's going to allow for the 30-year to adjust just slightly and come down right before our November election. So that's still my prediction. The Fed will make that rate cut. I'm going to say September. So that's put it on the market right now. So so Fed will make the rate cut in September, and then the other thing with our market is new construction right now. And I mentioned the luxury in homes, but new construction prices, you can't build a starter home anymore. It doesn't exist. So we represent a couple different builders. And the builders right now are just all steady. They haven't had to make price cuts. They're continuing to raise their prices. And so we've got homes that are selling. The average new construction price in St. Charles County is about $500,000, a little less than that, about $480,000, I think, is the average new price construction. And we're just seeing that trend across our area and our market. And the builders are putting up houses as fast as they can, but they've only got so many subs and so many people that are working. So there's a lot of new developments that are out there. One of our builders is Rawls, and Rawls has subdivisions from Lincoln County down to Jefferson County, into Franklin County, St. Louis County, St. Charles. They sell anywhere between $300,000 to $700,000 homes, and they have a steady line of people that are just waiting. They opened up a new subdivision in Lake St. Louis and had people camping out to get the lot that they wanted because it was new construction in Lake St. Louis, and they could do it for $500,000-$600,000, and they were happy with it. So we're starting to see the builders continue to keep up, but it's just Zycan and Sons is another one of our builders out in Forestel. They've got 150 lots in their development, and they've got half a dozen under construction right now, another half a dozen that are pending contracts, and that's a 1,700 to 2,200 square foot house that's selling for between $500,000 and $650,000, and people who are knocking down the door to get them. So new construction is steady. For this group, I think one of the biggest things to remember and to know is that inspections are 100% back in the game. They're, all year last year, year before, we had so many people that were waiving inspections, not conducting inspections. They were, not asking for things. Guys, inspections are back, and they are full force. I mean, some of us are getting lucky and getting, as is contracts, but one thing I will say is if you're listing a property, make sure that your agent knows how to negotiate those inspections and knows how to work for you. I think one of the biggest things I've seen right now is we're seeing inspection notices come through that are good, bad, and ugly. And the ugly ones come through and the agents start to lose their mind. And it's because they've never had to deal with an ugly inspection notice. And, I see Casey laughing. I mean, he can, some of the inspections that we have negotiated and pages of repairs and fixes, and some of these newer agents that have never done that before, they're getting these things and they're like literally their heads are exploding thinking, oh my God, the deal is dead. And it's not dead. It's a matter of going line by line through each one of those and not, and keeping you guys calm too as the sellers. You get 2 pages of fixes and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Oh, now Suzanne, how am I supposed to compete with that? Like, that is the cutest thing in the world. Nobody's going to pay attention to me anymore.
It wasn't cute when she was screaming and she was supposed to be napping, but here we are.
Yeah, so be prepared for that, guys. Inspections are 100% back. I think that there's some people, I've talked to some investors and they said, I'm getting offers and they're not waiving anything. Okay, like that's normal real estate. If they want to do an appraisal, if they want to do an inspection, if they want to have the opportunity to negotiate, that's totally fine. And you just got to be prepared for it, because I think there's a lot of people that have just gotten so complacent over the last couple of years with everything being waived and not have to worry about that. So that would be one of the big takeaways from this is just be prepared to negotiate and have that property ready to go. And if you can try to, if you think you're going to skip something over because they're not going to ask for it, they're probably going to ask for it. So just be prepared for that and knock out your punch list ahead of time. That's for sure. And then kind of the last thing, that I had on my list to talk about was pricing. Pricing is always number one on the list for me. Right now it's hit or miss on where that house is going to come in at based on the comps from the last 2 years, because the comps from the last 2 years have been kind of all over the board. We've seen people go way over asking price. And so really try to dial that in. We've seen more price reductions in the last 6 months than we've seen in the last 2 years. And there's nothing wrong with that either, guys. There's nothing wrong with, you know what, we're going to shoot for the moon here. And if we don't get it, we're just going to have to dial it back a little bit. And, making a price reduction is not the end of the world. Days on market are still pretty low for a lot of houses, but it is ticking back up. And so if you need to adjust price, adjust that price and make sure, when you're going out there to list the property, one of the biggest things is diving deep into those comparable properties. And, it has to be apples to apples. You cannot take a property that was a complete piece of junk and compare it to something that you guys have just completely rehabbed. It has to be apples to apples. And then you have to look at where those comparable properties started at in price. If they started at 350 and they sold at 400, you don't need to start at 400 and hope to get 425. If they started at 350, they're comparable to yours, you probably ought to start at 350 as well. And look at where those starting prices were versus where they ended, because some of those ending prices aren't reality, so that's definitely something you want to take into consideration there. And the other thing with the lack of inventory is when you're looking at those comps, also see what your competition is. If you're looking in a subdivision or an area that is saturated with listings and they're all priced, competitively, and there's a lot of them out there, it's going to take a little bit, unless you give us something special in that area, it's going to take a little while to sell it. Okay. Something else we've seen a lot of is resales in subdivisions that aren't completely developed yet. So if you're trying to resell a house and they're still building in that subdivision, we've seen those taking a little bit longer. And it's just because people have more options. It's also that, the pricing has got to be comparable to what the builder's putting it up for and what you're getting for your dollar. So we've seen a little bit more of a struggle in that aspect of it. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Again, the market is still very, very strong. I do think that people are just kind of enjoying their summer though. And I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it just means you got to have an agent that's willing to work for you. And make those modifications as necessary to make sure that those properties still sell in a timely fashion. So, but yeah, I'll open it up to questions if you guys got anything for me.
Matt, since it was one of the last things you talk about, I got a question on the list price to sale price and what we're seeing with appraisals. I know in the last couple of years, we saw a little bit of a discrepancy. Let's say you listed a house at 325 and went under contract at 385. I know appraisers were kind of looking at list price and they were trying to have to justify, that massive gap. Are we still seeing that? I know you said, you can get a little bit more aggressive with the sales price. I'm always, as an agent, I don't want to leave any money on the table, but I also don't want to be super aggressive. So I guess the question is ultimately, how are we seeing with appraisals? Are you noticing that if a house goes, significantly over asking, are we having trouble with appraisals, or, what's that look like?
Yeah, I would say we're about probably 60-40 on appraisals being good versus having issues. We are seeing some issues with appraisals. We had a strange one that just the other day, one of our new constructions didn't appraise, and new construction is hard, but typically the appraiser knows that going into it. And this appraiser hit us for a $30,000 deficiency on a new construction, and we couldn't come to terms with the buyers, and so we let it go and went back on the market. So we have seen, appraisers, they've got a tough job, and it's not easy. They got to dig deep into a lot of those. There's a lot of all appraisers aren't created equally, I can tell you that. And so there are times where we see that, I run the comps backwards and forwards, and I can justify that price a million different ways. And an appraiser goes in there and cuts us $7,500 short. It'd be, and trying to argue with an appraiser is difficult, but it's definitely something to be prepared for. And that's where in my mind, if you start with that, if you keep your numbers conservative on your flips, your rehabs, and you go in with a conservative mindset, if you get a huge win and you get 30,000 over asking, spectacular, but then you got to get through that appraisal process, and being prepared and able to potentially adjust is going to be huge. Now, we are still seeing a lot of people, we're still seeing a lot of the down payments being larger. When I started in 2012, every single down payment was 3.5%. That was all people were putting down. Now people have a little bit more money to play with. They're a little bit better prepared. So we have seen quite a few people that have said, I don't care what the appraisal came back at, I'll make up the difference, or we're able to negotiate to a point. But the appraisals are, we've seen more come in lower than usual. So I can say that. So I think it's getting a little bit more difficult for that. The other thing I will say too, part of the NAR lawsuit settlement is all commissions payouts are coming out of the MLS, and appraisers do pay attention to that. They look to see what the seller was paying, and they look to see what those commission rates are, and they're not going to have that information available to them anymore. All historical data and data moving forward will be gone when it comes to what compensation the seller was paying. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that, and I'm sure we're going to be fielding a whole lot more phone calls from appraisers wanting to get information on those situations. So, but yeah, good question, and appraisals are always fun. One of those things where you hold your breath and hope for the best.
Yeah, and really quick to just the last part, I've heard more people have appraisal adjustments in the last 3 to 6 months than I had the previous 5 to 6 years before that. Would you say that that's also the case?
Yeah, I think so. We're seeing more and more of it. So we'll see how it continues. But yeah, I would agree with you 100%.
Anybody else? Jump in anytime.
Yeah, I've got a question, and wonderful presentation, Matt. On the commission, and I am a licensed agent, and I rarely keep up on things, so I'm not sure what all the new commission stuff actually means to me, and I mostly am just an agent for myself.
Yep.
But I understand now that the commissions are not in the MLS, I'm with Worth Clark, that Worth Clark is going to have a separate side, I guess, or you have to go to the actual realtor to find out what it is. But that's not the point of my question before you get to that, because that would be more of an agent question. As an investor, from the investor side of it, I mostly do neighborhoods that are not as hot. Would love to do St. Charles, but I can't ever find one for the price I like. But I'm a big fan and don't use it as much as I used to of putting selling agent bonuses on there. Mm-hmm. That's kind of disappeared now, I guess, because no one would know about it? Or how do I convey that to the agent? And to me, it should have been an illegal practice anyway, but it works very well.
Yeah. Well, a great point, Rick. So with the NAR lawsuit, with the settlement, buyer agency commissions from cooperating brokers cannot be put into the MLS anymore. So we can't advertise it through the MLS. We can advertise it anywhere else we want. We just can't advertise it through the MLS. So for Magnolia, for instance, if you go out to our website starting this week, anytime we're offering cooperating compensation to another broker. So, if I go out and list a house for Brian, and Brian says, yep, I want to pay the buyer's agent, X number of dollars or a percentage, that's always been done at the listing. So we still do that. Nothing is changing there. Now it just depends. Now the new thing is where do we display that? How do we get that information to the other agents? And that includes agent bonuses, because the agent bonuses are out there right now. It's funny. I actually just had a conversation with an agent this morning. There's a listing out there right now that's paying a reduced commission. So, you've got a typical, commission rate that's normally out there. Well, this one's well below that. But they're offering then an agent bonus on the backside. So I'm like, why not just offer the normal rate and call it done? But whatever. But you're absolutely right, Rick. Bonuses work, especially when the market's not as hot as it has been. And so the question for that is going to be, how do we advertise that in a MLS that we can't advertise commissions? And it's going to simply have to be advertised on the agent websites, the agent pages. And then there's a new form, just so you guys are all aware, in the St. Louis market. There's a new form that is out there. It is called a cooperating compensation disclosure form. Okay. So if a listing is taken, if I'm going to sell a house for you, Rick, and you say I'm going to pay X in commission, and that's going to be split between the listing broker and the buyer broker, we're going to fill out and have you sign what's called a cooperating compensation disclosure. And what that is it's going to say on that disclosure exactly what the payout is for a buyer's agent, okay, for the buyer's representation. And that can't be loaded into the MLS. So you can't share it on the MLS, but it can be left in the property. It can be shared on your personal websites, and it can be sent to the agents if they request it. And so one thing, you guys, if you're listing a property after July 23rd with Magnolia, you'll be required to sign a cooperating compensation disclosure. And then after August 1st, every brokerage in St. Louis or in the Maris system will be requiring that form to be signed and filled out. And that's where that form is going to advertise what the commission payout is, and it will also advertise if there are any bonuses. So that's where you'll put the bonus information as well.
All right. Sounds so now you got to find your houses in the MLS and then go looking for commission if that's what you're doing as an agent.
Huge pain in the ass, that's for sure. So, but it's what we've been dealt right now. So we're going to deal with it. And the hard part is, and you, Rick, if you're an agent, you know this. Casey, I know knows this. Jamie, I knows this. There's a lot of agents that won't answer their phone. They won't return a phone call to you. They don't get back to you. Their clients have no idea that they don't talk to people. But that's going to be the hardest part, is when I'm trying to give you an offer, and before I submit that offer to you, I have to include this cooperative compensation disclosure so everybody knows up front who's getting paid what. That's spectacular, but if I can't get the agent on the phone or return a text or an email, I'm not going to know. And so I'm going to have to go into it blind and then go from there. So it'll be interesting. The next 6 months ought to be fun, but we'll get it figured out one way or the other. So, hey, Shannon.
Well, and I believe that they have lenders worked it out. So if you've got a buyer who's tight on money and they pick a house with no cooperating agent commission and they signed an agreement guaranteeing at least 2.7, can that be worked into the loan now? I thought that I had heard that somewhere.
So it can't be worked into the loan, but what it can be, it doesn't count against their other seller concessions. So basically, like, let's say they need closing costs paid too. So, if I'm doing a FHA loan, I'm allowed 6% in seller concessions. So if they are using the entire 6% for their seller paid concessions for closing costs and prepaids and all that stuff, you can also collect a credit that will help the buyer pay for the agent's commissions that doesn't count towards their max concessions for their closing costs, if that makes sense. So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said, did that make sense? You said, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
So then you have to build the commission into the offer and then pull it back out as a concession?
Yeah, correct. So basically, like, you know, if let's say that my buyer has enough money for all their closing costs, but they don't have enough money to pay me as their buyer's agent. We could say, okay, we're gonna ask for 2.5% from the seller in closing cost concessions. So that way their closing costs are paid and they can use their extra cash to pay the commission, you know, or something along those lines, or they have the seller pay the commission direct through the closing cost credit. So there's a couple different ways you can put it on there. You can actually write on if you use a St. Louis Realtors form, the residential sale contract that we use in St. Louis actually has a spot on there for seller paid direct commission for the buyer's agent. It's an extra line that's been added on the front page that you can actually fill that in if they're not offering it up front. So it's going to be real confusing for a little while, but we'll get through it. And I think overall, I don't think you're going to see much change in our market when it comes to how commissions are currently collected and paid. I think for the most part, everybody is going to stick with the traditional way of doing it because I think it's going to be very, very difficult to list a house not offering buyer compensation and pull in a good pool of buyers that can actually afford to pay their buyer's agent. So I think the way our system works, it's one of the best in the world. You talk to other countries, like they look at how we do real estate in the United States and they love it. And so I don't think much is going to change on that aspect, other than the fact that every agent out there is going to have to be doing a whole lot more work and homework to try to figure out what the payout is. So. Great question, though. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Matt, Sherry asked in the chat, decision on links to website and MLS agent remarks.
Links to the website, I don't think will be allowed, but we will be able to say, as far as right now, it changes every day, but as of right now, you can say in the agent only remarks in the MLS, visit our website for further information. And then if they click on the agent's name in the listing, our website is part of their profile. So then they can click on our website and go out to our website to see that. And Magnolia Real Estate will have not only the commission rate published on the listing, but we will also have a copy of that CCD form, the cooperating compensation form, on the website so that they can download that direct to use with their offers.
Matt, when you talk other brokerages, do you feel like they're articulating a plan with their agents to have something similar set up, or?
Yeah, I think some of them are, some of them aren't. I think some of them are just going to just basically put it in their agents' hands to figure out how they want to relay that information. I think there are a lot of agents that or a lot of brokerages that are out there that are trying to figure out a good way to get that information out. One thing that we can't do, the settlement makes it very, very clear that we can't all come together and say, okay, we'll put it in one spot, because that's just literally creating another MLS. So, you know, if Rick and I wanted to share, you know, cooperating compensation disclosures back and forth with each other via text or email, or he wants to go pull it from my website, that's totally fine. But if Rick and I put together a site and we said, okay, cool, we'll just throw all of our CCDs up here for each other to see, that would be a violation of the settlement. So lots of different conversations, but most brokerages, I think, are working towards trying to figure out what a good solution is so that information is readily available to anybody that needs it.
So is that commission information, if a consumer goes to your site, can they see it, or is it so everybody can see it?
Everybody can see it. Yep. And really, you know, that part of it I think is good. I think that, you know, when NAR had their settlement with DOJ a few years back, that was supposed to have already happened, was that the consumer should be able to go to Zillow or Realtor or to our websites and see what the seller is offering their agent as compensation, because a buyer has to take that into consideration. Because if a buyer hires me and I say, I will represent you as a buyer's agent and my fee to do that is X, that buyer knows right then and there, and always has, that if the seller is not compensating me at least that much, then they're gonna have to pay the difference. And so now that's something that they can take into consideration because they've signed a buyer's agency with me. They know what that amount is. So if they go out to my website and they're looking at properties out there and they say, you've got one listed and this is what you're paying, they know up front that, all right, cool, my buyer's agency commission is covered. I can go look at that house. So I think that part of it's a good thing. And it's just a little bit of a learning curve for the public to know what they're looking at there.
Well, based on that, I could almost see the argument where if they signed a buyer's agency that you're getting 2.7, I guess it says at least.
Yeah.
That a bonus would fall back into a deal because it was above and beyond. But it says 1% or at least.
You're exactly right though, Rick, because the new forms don't say a minimum of. The new forms, the way that they roll out next week, the new forms say that you will get paid this much. So my commission rate is X. If it is over X, then I have to do an amendment to my listing agreement to either accept that, or my buyer's agency agreement to accept that, or the seller gets to keep that concession, or the buyer gets to use it a different way. So yeah, you're absolutely, that is changing as well in our form. So it's not a minimum of anymore. It is, I work for this dollar amount. And if I'm getting paid more or less, then we have to adjust.
That gets kind of sticky on the more side.
Oh, it does. That's for sure.
Good conversation. And Rick, I think you should move your your license over to Magnolia. Just a side note there.
Where I'm at's pretty cheap and they leave me alone.
Matt's maybe a little bit more expensive, but it'll help you out a lot. All good. So Matt, you mentioned you kind of predicted, I'll say it that way, interest rates coming down a little bit through the fall. And most of us on this call, or a lot of us on this call, are buying houses to rehab them and resell them. So with interest rates coming down, the prediction of interest rates coming down a little bit this fall, what do you predict will happen if that happens with the inventory and or how houses will be selling? I mean, will they be selling at similar values to what you're seeing right now, or do you think they're gonna have a little bump or a little bit of a dip? You got an opinion on that? Can you predict?
Yeah, so I personally think that if the interest rates come down like I think they're going to, even if it's 1/4 or just 0.5%, I think that is going to bump the buyer pool up even more than what it is now. I don't see our inventory shifting dramatically because of that. You've got a lot of people. Part of our problem with inventory right now is you have so many people that took advantage of the 2% to 4% range. And so if the interest rate comes down 1/4% and they can now, go buy something new at 6.5% versus the 3% that they're sitting at, it still doesn't motivate enough people to sell, but it is going to also motivate the additional buyers that are out there to try to go out and take advantage of those rates coming down. So I think that rate drop plus inventory staying where it is makes the market that much more competitive. And it's going to keep us in that solid seller's market for quite a while. And I think, I honestly, going back to those bell curves, you used to look at our market in January, February, March, you started to come up, and then in May, June, July, August, you were in your peak, and then you started to come back down for the winter time. I really think that our real estate markets moving forward are going to be peaks in the spring and peaks in the fall, and you're going to see the lulls right around the holidays, and the summer is just going to be this kind of like weird little indentation. And it's, I think that's if we look at bell curves in 10 years, I hope that's what it looks like, and I'm right, because I think that's what it is. So Jeff's got a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, thanks guys, appreciate it. Just wanted to ask a question real quick. We have some real estate investor friends of ours that we met with a couple of weeks ago, and we've known each other for a real long time. one of the things that was discussed was, getting licensed, as a real estate agent. And so I wanted to put it here out to everybody. I work a full-time W-2 job, and I work a night shift from noon to 9 p.m. But I wanted to kind of get some feedback and ask, everybody's opinion. Is that something that would be difficult or a challenge, being the work shift that I work, and maybe some best advice or navigation?
Sure. Well, I'll give you my 2 cents on it. I've got a lot of agents that work full-time jobs, and they sell real estate, on the side. I have a lot of agents that only do their investment stuff. So kind of like what Rick was saying earlier, he basically just does his own stuff and uses his license for that. And then I've got agents that do it full time. I think the most difficult part for an agent that is not doing it full time is the fact that this industry is always changing. And so if you're not going to do it full time, that's totally fine and not a big deal at all. But you just need to make sure that you stay in the loop of what's going on. The forms change all the time. The rules change all the time. The laws change all the time. And if you're doing 1 or 2 deals a year, it's hard to be the expert in the field, because when you're trying to write a listing contract or trying to negotiate an offer, you haven't done it and you haven't seen the forms. And I think that's the biggest concern. So I've got people that do 3 or 4 deals a year. Most of it's just for themselves, but they attend every single meeting we have. They attend the trainings. They listen to what's going on with the forms. They've got a mentor assigned to them. They're in my office asking questions. And so that's what you need to do. The scary ones that are out there are the ones that do 1 or 2 deals a year. They don't ask questions. They don't have someone help them, and they try to do it on their own. And I think that as long as you've got a good team behind you, and you've got the resources that can walk you through those things, then you're totally fine. But if you want to try to navigate this industry once or twice a year and make it up as you go, I think you'll get in trouble. I'm an advocate for anybody that wants to get the real estate license. I love this industry. I love every aspect of what I do. I nerd out on houses all day, every day. You just have to you just got to make sure that if that's what you're going to do, timeline wise, you can do it. I worked in a 40-hour weeks W-2 job when I got licensed. I worked that even after I started Magnolia, and I was still doing that. And so as long as you can navigate the time, and again, it goes back to having the right team behind you, because if you're at work and something starts to implode, you've got to have somebody that you can rely on to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I'm at my other job. I need you to handle this for me. Because, we've got a lot of freedom in real estate, and there's people I talk to all the time, and they say, I'm going to get into real estate so I can make my own schedule. Spectacular. Enjoy your Sundays. Okay. Because that's every Sunday. My busiest day of the week is Sunday night. That is, my kids know it. We have dinner and then dad's on the phone until probably 10 o'clock. Like, it's just, that's what it is. But as long as you've got the right team and the right backing, I would just say, if you get into it, make sure you get into it. And whether you're going to do 1 deal a year or 100 deals a year, just make sure you've got a team that can keep you on top of what's changing and what's happening. Because you don't want to get yourself in a trick bag or a lawsuit because you missed something on a contract and now you're stuck. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I'll just I'm sorry,
sorry.
Jeff. I was just going to say.
Go ahead, Brian.
We're playing the game. So I was just going to add that if you're a real estate investor primarily, but you're wondering whether or not to get your license, I think I'm a big advocate of getting your license. Number one, for all the reasons that Matt just articulated very well. And I'll add again, if you're going to join a team like Matt's, where you got great leadership and stuff, not somebody that doesn't provide the resources and the education. But also, as a real estate investor, the single most important thing that you need to know is what are values of houses worth? And you can take control of that yourself by having access to the MLS if you're a real estate agent, where if you're not, you're guessing, and or you're relying on another agent to provide you that information, which, sometimes, they got other stuff to do. So that's the biggest reason I think it's a good idea to do it also.
And that's the other thing too, is you'll go out and there are some brokerages you'll talk to and they say, well, we don't want you, we won't hold your license if you're an investor or if that's all you want to do. And, and that's the other, when I got into real estate, I had a 40-hour week job. I was working shift work. And I told my broker at the time, I said, look, I'm not coming to a team meeting. I'm not doing any of this stuff. I don't have time to do it. And I learned really fast that I didn't need to do phone duty. I didn't need to go sit in the office and take walk-in leads. But what I did need to do was jump on the calls that were being held, or attend some of the meetings, because it was just, I'd submit an offer today and I get a response back from an agent that says, well, this form is no good anymore, or we don't use this, or we don't do that. And it's like, if you don't know that stuff, then, you're uneducated when you send those offers and it just doesn't work out. So, but having the access to the MLS and diving into it, and even just being around the like-minded people, I mean, that's the big thing. We host our meetings at Magnolia. We do them on Monday nights, once a month from 5 to 7 p.m. We just had our meeting this month. The meeting ended up not getting over until almost 7:45 because there were so many questions. And then I had to kick people out at 10 o'clock because they were all sitting around talking and drinking beer and wanting to talk deals. And, so it was, they learned so much from just having those conversations with each other. That's the big part. And doing stuff like this is huge. Being a part of a community like this is just massive.
And I'm a huge advocate of resources, educating myself. And the biggest part of that is, getting in an environment, engaging, and having that coaching and mentorship, available. For me, it's, you can't put a price on something like that. So I'm just very appreciative to be in a community like this in Faster Freedom where, we have access to resources and people that, are there to, help us succeed. So thanks, guys.
Good to have you, Jeff. So we got like 3 minutes left. So anybody else got a question for Matt? Or you just got something a win you want to share, or a different challenge or question you want to ask real quick? So open room.
I'll go. I don't
Okay.
have a question. I've got a house that I'm going to be putting on the Faster Funds Tribe and Faster House and other places on Facebook. It's going to be a burr in a beautiful neighborhood in Hazelwood, 1,400 square feet. It was born a 3-bedroom, but could easily be a 4. And as a 4, I believe Section 8 would be 1,400 something a month. But I'll be putting it on here later on today. Be available to be shown by Friday for sure, maybe later tomorrow. Or if anybody's interested, reach out to me directly.
What's the asking price, Rick?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to start at 110. It's 1,400 square foot, but it has no basement, 4-bedroom, 2-bath.
Right over behind the old Bigfoot store.
Yep, beautiful little section back there. A lot of people don't even know it's there.
Yep.
Very good.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing. Matt, thanks for taking the time for us today, man. That was awesome. You provided a ton of valuable content there, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me. I always love talking to this group. So I'll see you next quarter.
See you next quarter. And hopefully we'll see all you guys on tomorrow evening, right? Buyers Club tomorrow evening. So come on out. Casey's the star of the show tomorrow. So come out and see Casey. And if we don't see you tomorrow night, we'll see you on this call a week from today, next Wednesday at noon. So everybody have a great day, great week, and we'll see everybody soon.
See you guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.